After 3 days, 5 events, and a case of laryngitis, Elizabeth Warren's first trip to Iowa as a presumptive presidential candidate is now in the rearview mirror. And according to Adam Reilly, who was there for it all, Massachusetts senior senator made a pretty strong first impression.
The Iowa caucuses are still more than a year away, but everywhere Elizabeth Warren went, people lined up to see her. And if they couldn't all get inside, Warren came to them.
So, first piece of bad news is I picked up a cold. Too much time with little people, so I will do my best to croak through this. Second piece of bad news, not enough room for everybody to get inside. Think about that.
Again and again, after giving a mini stump speech, Warren headed into the main event, serving up a hefty dose of populism.
Washington works for the rich and the powerful and leaves everyone else behind. This is corruption.
But also humor, with self-deprecating cracks about getting married at 19 and having 3 brothers, one of whom is a Democrat. That line is also a way for Warren to show she's not too liberal and could win in swing states like Iowa. At every stop, the voters I spoke with came away impressed and, in some cases, dazzled.
I think the room was full of chills, and I think that was something that was pretty special.
I loved her. Everything I think she said.
To me, she didn't come off as being extreme right. To me, she came out of being pragmatic for the people, for the regular people.
Still, Warren's Iowa trip did point up some potential liabilities, including concern that she's too easily baited by President Trump.
I wish she didn't react to some of the stuff that Trump says so much, just like ignore him and not react so they don't have any fuel.
What are you thinking of specifically?
The Pocahontas thing, having a DNA test.
I also heard from women who worried that Warren's gender might be a liability. By getting into the fray early, though, Warren's given herself plenty of time to dispel any misgivings. And in Iowa, she got off to a pretty good start.
We, together, can dream big and fight hard, and that's how we'll make change.
Adam Reilly joins me now. Welcome back.
Hey, Jim. Thanks.
Maybe that last woman answers my question, but I was wondering, the stuff we talk about incessantly here, do they talk about incessantly there, like heritage, DNA, that sort of stuff?
They talk about some of it. The DNA thing came up a few times unprompted with people I spoke with. Another concern that was raised was gender, whether that might make her less electable than
people ask her that?
No one asked her about gender. Someone did ask her about DNA, and her answer was, Republicans started going after me about this in 2012. I decided to put it on the table. She did not address the law school directory thing. Let me tell you one thing people do not obsess about. Not one person told me they weren't sure she was likable enough. Not one person told me, I don't know if a Harvard Law School professor can play in Middle America.
So the gender thing you talked about, you mean just attendees were talking amongst themselves?
Well, there was this
to you?
really interesting
What, that we're not ready for a woman, even though every other Western democracy has already have one?
I tried not to nudge people in certain directions and say, what did you like about her, and what gives you pause? And a few people said, I hate to say this, but after what happened to Hillary Clinton in 2016, I'm worried that this might play against her. But other people came back and said, look at the 2018 midterms. Women did terrific in those. This is the best time to run another woman.
From the clips I heard from you and other words, it sounds like the 2 words Donald Trump were not mentioned nearly as often as I thought they would have been. Am I right about that?
Yeah, and I don't even know if I can count on one hand the number of times they came up.
Yeah, what's that
about? She was asked about this at an avail, and she said, well, the conversation just hasn't gone in that direction. People haven't brought it up. There were a lot of allusions to Donald Trump, American democracy being at a crisis moment, but she didn't point to him directly, explicitly. I think she's probably trying to show people that she doesn't need to, respond every time the president goes there.
You had 2 or 3, I think it was 3 people in a row who were, to say the least, wildly enthusiastic about it. But I wonder at these things. She was, in retrospect, it turns out, it seems to me really smart to go first. So you have the
I agree with you.
Totally yourself, national media, all in addition to people like you. But was the overall excitement, I don't even know if you can generalize like this, about Elizabeth Warren, or we finally have a high-profile candidate who might stop Donald Trump?
It's a great question, and I don't have a good answer for you. I'm guessing, half of each, perhaps. people there in Iowa are very similar to people in New Hampshire. They'd have these incredibly enthusiastic responses, talk about how wonderful she was. I'd say, so will you support her, assuming she's a candidate, and say, oh, no, it's way too early. I'm going to see everyone before I make my decision.
And every presidential candidate has to change their kitty litter at least once. Does that come to the House?
Right, and then a day before the caucuses, they'll say, I still don't have enough information. I got to hear more from the candidates, right?
Congratulations. You did a great job.
Thanks,
You really did fabulous reporting. Welcome home.
Thank you.
Adam Reilly.